name is Kevin Kuhn. I'm a lawyer at Baker & McKenzie. My practice is labor, employment, and health and safety law. I'm a speaker on one of the sessions to deal with the Bill 160, which is the reform of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and then a few other hot topics in health and safety. Bill 160 is a major reform of the Health and Safety Act, and it's enabling legislation, which means that it provides a bit of a framework as to the changes that are to come. And many of those changes will be by way of regulation. The implications for employers in the future are that there clearly is going to be enhanced requirements with regards to training that employers are required to provide to employees, to their own supervisors, and across the board in terms of health and safety. So that's one of the major implications. The other implication is that the government has signaled that they are looking for increased enforcement of health and safety requirements. And they're talking about additional penalties or enforcement mechanisms. And so currently, an employer can be prosecuted under the Health and Safety Act, but they're also looking at administrative penalties and other tools which the inspectors can use to enforce. And I guess thirdly, what I might say is there's a very interesting change which signals that Ministry of Labor inspectors, which currently simply come into a workplace and enforce whether the Health and Safety Act has been complied with, there's a view of a changing role for inspectors, where they're going to come in and actually assist employers as to how to comply, not just whether or not they have complied. It's not completely set out in the statute, but certainly the commentary from the Ministry of Labor has signaled that one particular area, for example, where there is legislative change is in codes of practice. So, for example, industry associations or employers will now be able to have pre-approved codes of practice on how to comply with the particular aspects of the Health and Safety Act, pre-approved in advance. And so an employer that meets that code of practice will be deemed to have complied with the obligations under the Health and Safety Act. It's envisaged that inspectors, when they come into the workplace, will now be informing employers as to the codes of practice that exist and areas in which they may well take steps to comply. For workers' perspective, it's a positive in that it's envisaged that workers will have a standardized training across the province, a minimum amount of training for any individual worker coming in, as well as specific training around particular hazards. And the thought is that there will be multiple ways of receiving that type of training. It'll be available in numerous languages. And if you think back to the Tony Green report that was really the catalyst for the reform, a lot of the discussion around that report was around vulnerable workers, in the sense that large employers where they have a unionized workplace, where they have systems in place, really wasn't the focus. It was the ministry is finding a high incidence of accidents and injuries in places where less sophisticated employers, or what they refer to as vulnerable workers. And so from that perspective, the focus is really on providing them with a level of training, understanding of the risks in the workplace, and then vehicles to not be fearful of raising health and safety concerns in the workplace around fear from reprisal. If implemented based on what I think they envisage, or at least what's been talked about, is that you'll have a broader cooperation amongst the stakeholders involved in health and safety in terms of devising an overall strategy for Ontario as to not just simply enforcement of health and safety, but also the prevention issues. And so right now you really have a disjointed system. That prevention is currently under the responsibility of the Workplace Safety Insurance Act. The Ministry of Labor enforces the regulation, makes the laws and the regulations, and then enforces it. And so the concept is to really house the prevention aspects and the enforcement under one roof. And they're building some mechanisms where the stakeholders can have input into an overall strategy, not just on prevention, but also in terms of enforcement. And so hopefully there should be more coherence within the system, and ultimately if there is coherence in the system, means fewer accidents in the workplace. The prevention system in Ontario has really been the responsibility of the health and safety associations. The 10 in the past and now down to the 4. And so part of the delivery of prevention and the role of prevention has fallen almost exclusively in the hands of the health and safety associations. And so, key to the future of prevention and reaching the workplaces where prevention needs to be is Health and Safety Ontario. And so, part of looking at the safety associations and Health and Safety Ontario is, using the resources we have efficiently, but also reaching the workplaces directly. And that's really the link that the Health and Safety Associations have and the role that Health and Safety Ontario will continue to play. The real benefit of Health and Safety Ontario is that it's going to bring coherence to the system, and it's going to continue to play a key role in the prevention system in Ontario, and that's the role they played in the past, and that's the role clearly that they need to play in the future.